morning and the start of the Castrol 6 Hour, the 16th annual Castrol 6 Hour Motorcycle Production Classic, is almost ready to start. It's a red letter day here at Oran Park, the 2.6 kilometre circuit south of Sydney for the Castrol 6 Hour. In previous years, the race has been dominated by one or two manufacturers, but this year, all four Japanese manufacturers start equal favourites. If there is one underdog, it's the very powerful but also very heavy Honda team, and that's to say that the star of this show, Australian international Wayne Gardner, will have to ride with all his skill and verve to make up the deficit. The central commentary position today is headed by Will Hagan, and with him is a very special commentator.
Rain, the rider's horror, already starting to fall, so it's almost certain that John Smales will have a wet day down in the pits. I'll be in central commentary with one of the world's, I think, most naturally gifted motorcycle riders, a man who once was second in the World 500cc Championship, New Zealander Graham Crosby, who, however, never managed to win the 6 Hour, which you must reckon is a hard race to win, Graham.
Well, I've tried it a lot of times and I've never been able to do it, and especially today, I don't envy those guys out there.
Sure. Very hard plugging around in the rain and with a lot of traffic.
Well, mainly the concentration in the wet and extreme slippery conditions is going to make it difficult, Will.
And this year, all four Japanese manufacturers in with a chance, with a genuine winning chance.
Oh, every manufacturer's got at least 2 or 3 good teams there, and any one of them's going to do it.
And how many riders and teams could win?
I would say about, at the moment, there's probably 12 teams that are capable of doing it in the conditions that we're going to prevail today.
This is the scene. 42 bikes lined up on the grid, and 42 very tense riders over there on the grass on the right-hand side, waiting for the off, which is now about 2.5 minutes away. This is the way they qualified yesterday. Neil Chivers, as you can see, who will start the ride on bike number 6, clear fairly well by 1 second of Roger Hayes, who will start on bike 16. Len Willing will be first rider on bike 4. On 14, it'll be Robert Holden. Wayne Clark will ride the opening session on his bike, and Kevin McGee on bike number 1. You can see, too, how close the times are. And again in the next pair of bikes, 2 bikes on identical times. In that case, John Pace doing the opening stint, Paul Feeney doing it on number 5, Mark Mountford on 28, Rod Cox on number 2. And again, you can see how many of the bikes are close in times. Alan Delatour will lead away on bike 12, and Robbie Phillis on bike number 8. Now, that's the first 12, but below there's some notable bikes. Number 7, Glenn Taylor, starting from 14th grid position, and a former winner of the race is back in 83. Number 9, Malcolm Campbell, in 18th grid position. His co-rider, Ben Middlemas, went out in the dry session yesterday, Malcolm having done his qualifying in the wet, and Middlemas couldn't pull out a good time, so we'll be looking to that bike to make its way up through the field as the race gets underway. Graham Crosby, this is a dreadfully tense moment when riders are quite unnatural. Their brains aren't in gear.
That's for sure. I'm sure someone has left their brains in the toolbox, too.
60 seconds now to the start of the Castrol 6 Hour, the 16th in what has been a great motorcycle race series. It is for purely stock production bikes, which means they must be absolutely as they're sold in the showroom. And that means, in the case of the FZ Yamaha 750, a brilliant bike, but it does ground its foot pegs and mufflers, and the organisers have demanded that the bikes start with new mufflers. So in the opening stint on those bikes, they will be looking to grind them away, and it'll be a bit discomforting for riders for the first 15 or 20 seconds. Now just seconds remain. Sprint across, all of the bikes with electric starts, 42 of them lined up. 15 now. Fastest Honda, 10th grid position. 2 Suzukis in grid positions 1 and 2. Kawasaki, 3rd position. 5 seconds. Flag in the background. Brilliant start from the middle of the field there by a red leather rider. Couldn't pick him. We've got a great jump at 4. That's Len Willing on the Kawasaki, and won't he love that? Romping away from on bike number 2. It's Rod Cox on the Wayne Gardner bike. He's in 2nd place. And incredibly packed field. I've never seen 42 bikes look so busy. And bike number 3, John Pace, jet sail at the tail end of the field. In third place is number 8 at the moment. That's Rob Phillips, Scott Stevens. But Jeff Sales, John Pace. Last year, Jeff Sales didn't get the bike going at all. The bike gave trouble on the starting grid, and he seems to be having a similar problem this year. But it's Len Willing with a brilliant break on the Kawasaki Graham Crosby that really has got so much grunt it would have been nice to ride away from the grid there.
Well, it certainly would be. It's got a good set of carburetors on that one, and it's very, very easy to ride through the corners. What these guys are going to have to watch now is just the fact that the circuit is not totally dry. There are patches of red, patches of wet. It's going to be a bit of a problem for the first 2 or 3 laps till they sort themselves out at least.
Len Willing has a lead, unbelievable, of 4.2 seconds. Seems impossible, but it's massive, the lead that Len Willing has. He has blitzed the field at this stage. We'll get another read on it as he goes down the straight, and indeed, it's 4.14 across the start-finish line. A sensational start for the Kawasaki, and in fact, Kawasaki's, really, although Willing qualified third, the next one was 19th, so they're not so well placed. Looking at number 9, Malcolm Campbell, Ben Middlemas. So Campbell got away well. He was in 18th grid position.
Well, this is the sort of strategy we'd expect from the Kawasaki's, as they haven't got a very, very good fuel consumption, and they've really got to play the rabbit in the first early session just to make sure that they can get through and build up as much of a lead as possible.
Rain falling? No, not yet, but the ground is certainly damp. Track wouldn't be too bad as we look at number 2, Rod Cox ridden bike at the moment, and he'll be sharing with Wayne Gardner. Number 6 in behind him is Neil Chivers, Dave Hiscock, who qualified fastest. So it's Kawasaki there, Kawasaki 900, and Willing really going for it. That's the gap, and he's now being hauled in to some extent. He's had that lead diminish. As we look at Neil Chivers, Dave Hiscock, through the kink there at about 190 kilometres an hour. Then it's Rob Phillips in second. Third is Rod Cox. Fourth is bike 6, that's the Neil Chivers bike. And then fifth, tucked in behind him, I think, is Michael Dowson. Indeed it is. So that's the first 5. Then in 6th place is number 8. That's Rob Phillips, Scott Stevens. 37 there, doing very well, Tony Armstrong, Sam Forsyth. 14 heading that pack is Robert Holden, Neil Robinson. Willing, and you can see he's not been able to hang on to that 4-second margin. Man who won an unlimited Grand Prix at Bathurst and who these days tending to concentrate on production bikes, doing a good job, but 2.16 seconds his lead. Here on 9, and a very busy too, Malcolm Campbell, who's had a record time in the 6 hours virtually since the year he won it in 83. But look at that, from 18th grid position, Malcolm Campbell, now second and catching Len Willing. Really flying. That, of course, is on the 1000cc Honda. Then 6th, Neil Chivers. He's sharing that bike with Dave Hiscock, New Zealander, won the Swan Series on a couple of occasions. And you see how much Campbell's reining in. Rod Cox is tucked in closely behind Chivers, and Dowson's close to him. A real pack there for 3rd, 4th and 5th position. Suzuki, 750 in that pack with the right-hand muffler. It's a 4-into-1 exhaust system. Look how clear it is of the ground, and nothing on the left-hand side to scrape, unlike the Yamahas. Honda's extremely well placed though. Kawasaki with, in fact, there's Malcolm Campbell. Is Malcolm Campbell ever flying?
Certainly is, Will.
Going like a rocket. Look what he's done to a more than 4-second lead that Len Willing had on lap 1, and this is only lap 4 coming up to the finish now. Starting on lap 5.
Very disconcerting for Len Willing. He thinks he's trying to pull out a good gap there and put a bit of a time margin between the guys behind him, but it would be too nice to look around and see Mal Campbell hovering around his back wheel.
Mal Campbell, too, taking the Western Underwriters Superbike Series off Robbie Phillips this year. The only man, in fact, to pin him down. They're on lap 5, and fairly obviously the lead in the Castrol 6 hour, the 16th. Totally production motorcycle race with very tight scrutineering. I think about to change, but Willing looks as though he's got a little bit of response. Is there an obvious place, Graham Crosby, for the big heavy Honda with enormous mid-range torque to get past the Kawasaki?
Well, I would think down the straight's probably the easiest and safest, but see by the way Mal's riding it, he wants that lead.
Well, that is a sensational start from 18th grid position. Just unbelievable.
The things that go through your mind when you're starting this 6-hour race is that you've got to make a showing. No good running around the 10th to 12th spot for the first hour to break down. Nobody actually sees or hears of you. So you've really got to go out there and make yourself known. And I can see by the way Mal's riding, that's exactly what he wants to do. He wants to put as much of a gap between the rest of the guys and himself.
But Willing is well aware of him now and has replied in his fighting, isn't he?
Well, it appears so. I don't know why at this stage. Anyway, got a long way to go.
So the two favoured bikes, the FZ 750 Yamaha and the GSX R 750 Suzuki with oil cooling in the engine rather than water cooling, using its own lubricating oil going through jacket around the engine to cool the engine and so save the weight of the water and of the bigger passages and radiator that would be required. Gee, the Kawasaki punched out of that corner well.
It certainly did, Will, but just watch the Honda through here. He's got an enormous amount of mid-range power and he catches right up behind Len Willing. He'll be lighting him up now to try up the inside, I guess. Now, it's obvious that the two guys are riding fairly equal lap times, and it is difficult to pass in situations like that.
Now he'll be looking to be good through here, won't he, to get a good run onto the straight?
Well,
Campbell.
As long as he comes out behind and sits in the slipstream there, he'll get a slingshot effect.
The lap time about 21.85.
There's very little in it, Will. These two bikes are just pretty much the same on acceleration and top speed.
Coming up to lap to Kajiva, number 46, being ridden by Wayne Pratt at the moment, and he's leading lap on lap 6.
Looks more like a travelling marshal.
Third place still, as you can see, is bike number 6. Neil Chivers and Dave Hiscock. Neil Chivers riding the bike that took pole position, so it's Kawasaki from Honda, from Suzuki. Len Willing, a few years younger than Malcolm Campbell. Malcolm about 33. Wiry, fit and muscle. Willing long and stringy, by far the tallest of the Willing family of motorcycle riders. And can he get the flip-flop right? And he has. Pretty hard area to get past a good rider, Graham.
Well, if you plan your entry to that corner and exit, you should be able to make sure that as you're coming out, you've got that extra bit of acceleration to carry your pass into the first part of the flip-flop there.
And Chivers coming up to join them too now on the Suzuki. So that's the leading three bikes in the Castrol 6 hour, and Willing's gone back to the lead on the Kawasaki. Campbell on the Honda back to second. Chivers is in third place on the Suzuki. So the only one we're waiting to see representation from, as we see it, a 21.93 second lap time, is the Yamahas. And bike number 8 is doing that job for them. It's in fourth place.
That's the Suzuki. Will, number 1, Mike Dalton. He's just about to join.
So Campbell, with the problem that often hits riders and drivers of not being able to get guys past the guy in front and then being threatened from behind. So that indeed is Rob Phillips, Scott Stevens on bike number 8 at the moment. Rob Phillips is riding. He qualified 12th, so he's done a bit of a Malcolm Campbell too.
Well, of course, the qualifying times yesterday weren't really a full representation of the rider's ability because of obviously the wet conditions and dry conditions, not giving the riders a fair run.
We have just over a second covering that, and that's Michael Dowson, who won the race last year in a sensational ride. Campbell's back to second past Chip, and now Phillips is with him, but Dowson's coming up too. So it'll give us 2 Suzukis, a Honda, Kawasaki, and the Yamaha in the top 5. To me, Neil Chivers, Michael Dowson were really the highlight of last year's race, and Robert Holden, who paired with Chivers. They came third on the 750 Suzuki, which was relatively uncompetitive, and as Willing's last pass on that rider, and they just rode so hard right from the off. And I think it was Dowson's riding like that on the relatively underpowered but very agile Yamaha 500 that really made the win for him by just 3 seconds from Wayne Gardner on the 1000cc Honda, similar to the updated model that Malcolm Campbell's riding now. Chivers, you can see there in the middle of this pack of 5. 20.3 their last lap, so down come the times as the riders are confident in the track surface and as they're being pressured. Chivers is now second. Suzuki.
That little Suzuki really goes well. Pulled out past Mal Campbell on the big Honda.
Yes, on a 1000cc Honda. Here comes another Suzuki and the Yamaha of Michael Dowson. And boy, this is a freight train. That was a 20.99 second lap time, averaging around 120 kilometres an hour, and coming up to join that Group 2 is yet a 6th bike at the tail end there. Lap 9 they're on. Sorry, completed, they're on 10. Leading the pack through on lap riders, and the first time they see him jump through, they suddenly become aware, so it's Willing that's doing the hard work for them. 1.1 seconds separates the first 6 bikes in the Castrol 6R, as trying a leap underneath them was Rob Phillips on bike number 8. So it's Chivers now leading as they go on to lap 11. The Suzuki of Chivers leads from Len Willing. Then in third place is bike number 8, Rob Phillips. So Suzuki's 1 and 3, Kawasaki 2, and Honda back to 4. Mal Campbell, who led briefly, has been forced back to 4th place. Kawasaki swooping past Rob Phillips, who's trying to slot his Suzuki up in there too. So already we've had 3 different race leaders and more changes of first place than that. Chivers looking as though he just might be starting to pull the brakes, Brad.
He would be trying to, but everybody else would be trying to hang on. I see Roger Hayes just sliding up there as well.
And Len Willing losing a piece there. As I think it was Campbell driving underneath him, but boy, the reliance of each on the other there as they come up to lap number 22, Terry Yates and Terry Morris. Chivers leading the pack now. And then come up to lap 32, Ian Swift, Kevin Horton, the Yamaha 750. So Chivers from Rob Phillips now is second. Suzuki's 1 and 2. But are a thirstier bike than the FZ Yamaha, and now Campbell third. So Willing has been forced well and truly back. There you see Willing fourth. Dowson might just get underneath him in a moment on number 1. That's the best placed of the Yamahas. You see them there, right on the tail of the green leathers. And another pair of bikes coming up to join the charge, including the first of the Matic team bikes, one of the FZ750 Yamahas.
I think everybody's got sort of used to the circuit now, and the lap times will be coming down as they gain a little bit more confidence. They've resurfaced right from Bitcher Pave all the way through Yamaha Corner, Goodyear Straight, and up to the top of the flip-flop. So the actual surface condition is extremely good at the moment.
Another Suzuki attack, this one on Mal Campbell. That's the leading pair. It's Phyllis leads now, the fourth leader in the Castrol 6 Hour. That only on lap 12. So Rob Phyllis, then Neil Chivers, Mal Campbell being overtaken down the straight. The little Albury rider, Phyllis.
He's got a very determined face on today.
Indeed. Well, Rob hasn't had a lot of happy 6 hours. I think he was caught napping a little bit last year by people like Michael Dowson and that, and then wasn't helped, of course, by the bike getting trouble. 16 in there, Roger Hayes. He was one of the fastest qualifiers in the dry. He's got up into the pack as well. Roger Hayes is on a Suzuki 750.
Mike Dowson, number 1.
Yes.
Coming up to join the boys.
Len Willing. Yes, Hayes. He was one of the ones that came up to the tail end of the pack, and you can see what he's doing, cleaving through the pack as he laps the bike. And what really we're getting out of this is that although most of the brands are in there fairly evenly, the Suzuki's at the moment lapping the fastest of any of the bikes in the field.
The little Suzuki's actually around here are very, very agile. They're very quick, obviously, but they're going to be very hard for the riders to maintain this type of pace for a long period.
They also have one more fuel stop than the Yamaha, don't they? Well, that's expected.
They can get an hour and 12 minutes, which is the minimum they require, without too much of a problem.
Well, just look at the pack there. 5 joining them, Richard Scott, Paul Feeney on that particular bike. Feeney riding at the moment. Hauling them down in the BSs now, where they have to be so precise and tidy, and Dowson coming up on the Campbell. Len Willing back in front of Malcolm Campbell now, Kawasaki from Honda, from Yamaha, with Suzuki's, and here they are, up front, Phyllis out of frame, then Neil Chivers, second. And they are now down into the 19s, the Suzuki's, 19.4 on the last lap. Underneath, number 39, Peter Maloney, Chris Harman from the ACC. On the Suzuki 500, a two-stroke similar to the Yamaha that won last year. The Yamaha a V4 and the Suzuki a square 4, but similar concept in the sense of the four-stroke on the two-stroke and a very light bike. But these four-strokes, all the bikes that are doing the work at the moment, travelling so quickly. These Suzukis, by throwing away water cooling and, as I said, using the engine oil for cooling, they pared the weight back from more than 200 kilos as being typical for a bike in that class to 176, and in addition have slightly more power, just a whisker more than the 5-valve cylinder Yamaha that has 3 inlet valves and weighs around 207 kilos. That's 20% less weight for the Suzukis, and that's substantial. It does count.
Certainly does, especially when you've got to do a 6-hour race around here. The lighter the bike, obviously, the better it is. The Suzuki, the main reason they went for the oil cooling was to try and minimise the engine temperatures. And in doing so, obviously, you can run thinner castings.
Roger Hayes, well situated in there, 2 and 16. They've finished 15 laps. And this is the race situation. You can see the leader there, Rob Phillips from Neil Chivers, Roger Hayes. So 3 Suzukis in the first 3 places, relegating Honda and Kawasaki further back to 4th place for the man that led initially, 5th place for the man who led very briefly, and 6th for the man who's yet to get there, Michael Dowson, being paired by Kevin McGee, a great up-and-coming rider on bike number 1, the best placed of those 5-valve cylinder Yamahas. Phyllis nicely clear now from Chivers and from Roger Hayes. He's built up a nice buffer, you can see it there. And he therefore is travelling really quickly and will love this break. Puts far less pressure on him in traffic as well. Through that fairly tight corner at the end of the straight after the high-speed kink. Tough, wiry little man from Albury, very likeable, and very smooth and easy on a bike. Winner of the RI 500 race at Bathurst, specialising these days in production and superbikes after a stint on a Suzuki 500 Grand Prix bike, but it was expensive for his sponsor Mick Hone, and Robbie felt it didn't get the recognition it deserved, so they didn't stick with it very long. You'll see HDT, Holden Dealer Team stickers on the bike, great friends of John Harvey and the Holden Dealer Team, who in turn are great admirers of Robbie's ability, and sometimes transport the bike around for him and so on, and give him a bit of help. So Phyllis, then Chivers, then Roger Hayes pressuring him as they go out to start lap 18. There you see the scrap between the next 2 Suzuki, and Len Willing still holding up 4th on number 4. Dowson's 5th now. Campbell's back to 6th. Michael Dowson, you see him there, and in fact Campbell is not there. 14 is there, and that's Robert Holden, Neil Robinson's Suzuki. Riding that one at the moment is Robert Holden, who's doing the first stint. Neil Robinson said before the start, Robert's just a little bit more aggressive than I am, and we'll get him to do the first stint and monster some of the others.
But of course Robert was to be paired with Bob Toomey, but he slipped off the bike in practice and broke his thumb, so he was relegated to the sidelines to watch.
A little bit of rain coming now, you can see it there on the camera lens. And very misty, you can see it in the picture too. And the worst time, I think, Graham Crosby, with rain is when you know it's starting to fall and you don't know yet how slippery it is or it's going to become.
Well, every rider would either prefer it dry or totally wet. It's that interim period where it's either drying out or just lightly raining that's the problem.
Len Willing, brave in the rain, and goes into 2nd place. Past Neil Chivers, who he says is going too slowly. Boy, absolutely flying on the Kawasaki 900. So it's Willing now back to 2nd. Robert Holden in there, takes up 4th. The best position he's been in so far. Michael Dowson is 5th. And 6th, to me, it looks like Paul Feeney.
Well, looks as if it's going to be a lot of rain around. Len Willing's certainly going to shine at it, that's for sure. He got a big break right at the start of the race when it was virtually damp conditions. And as it's dried out, he's been relegated back to running around the 5th, 6th spot. But now we've got a bit more rain. You can see it on the road there.
Yeah.
everybody will be taking it very, very easy from now on.
Look at Michael Dowson just sitting differently on the bike now, isn't he? A little bit forward, a little bit more upright.
He will be riding with his fingertips and toenails, I can assure you.
Well, a very significant change in conditions. As you see there, Robbie Phillips carving up Len Willing, and Phillips coming up to, well, back to second place, is it? Yes, hanging on to second place, but Willing going for the lead. Let's go down to the pits to John Smales.
And with me is Chris Mattich from the Pirelli team, and it is starting to get wet down here, Chris.
That's for sure, John, yeah.
Your rider, Richard Scott, is back a little bit from this dice, this magnificent dice that's going on for the lead. Why?
Well, if it had been raining, we would have put Paul Feeney on the bike originally, but it was dry to start with, so Richard went on the bike. He's been the quickest in the dry, but as much as he's in 5th place, he's only 4 seconds behind the leaders, so he's just sitting at the tail end of this leading bunch. Now that it's raining, I think he's obviously playing caution at the moment. We've still got 5.5 hours to go.
Of course, this rain's going to be coming in and out all day. What's the tactics tyre-wise?
Well, we're in a very fortunate position. We don't have to change tyres if it's raining. Some of our opposition, though, have got a different tyre choice if it's raining as opposed to if it's dry. So normally they would change front and rear. We don't have to change either, so it doesn't make any alteration to our plan at all.
This is a question best thrown at Graham Crosby, but I'll ask you, what does it do to a rider when it suddenly pours in raining like it's doing at the moment?
Graham would probably love it, actually. Yeah, at this stage, they're obviously going to be thinking that there's a long way to go, and you know, that some of the guys they're racing with are prepared to take a little more risk than the other. But they're in the groove now, fortunately. They've just got to try and judge their pace back to a wet weather pace, you know. It's difficult, but all these guys have been doing it for a long time.
Well, back to the dry commentators.
Well, down a very wet straight they go again, and it's Neil Chivers, as you can see there, on 4, with Michael Dowson fairly close to him. And they really are tippy-toeing.
A lot of these riders will be worrying about the fogging up of the visors. You get this film build up on the inside of the visor, which is very, very difficult to see through. And of course, you have to treat the visor before you go out in the rain. And also, your gloves will become waterlogged. It's very, very difficult to hang on to the bike. Your leathers will become soaked, and it becomes very, very uncomfortable.
Yes, Robbie Phillips was making different choices of glove according to whether it was going to be wet or dry, and going to wear sort of kitchen washing up gloves over his very lightweight leather ones if it was wet, but he'll probably have the wrong ones on now.
Most of these top-line riders have a couple of suits, so in between times they'll be able to change them, but they'll probably keep the red.
And that's number 12 gone, and riding that is Ian Saunders, Alan Delatour.
That's Alan on the bike there, Will. Be very, very disappointed.
Yeah, Buster Saunders to share the bike with him, and you can see the rider's okay, but the bike doesn't come out of that sort of a toss very well. Thumped the back wheel and thrown that out of alignment, thumped the front as well, and then had a go at the top end of the bike with the instruments and the fuel tank.
Yes, I think we can count that one out.
They were well back in the field at that stage, weren't in the leading group. We look now at Len Willing from in 2nd place, Rob Phillips, 3rd place, Michael Dowson, 4th place, he's on number 1, is Neil Chivers, 5th place on 9, Malcolm Campbell, 6th place on 5 is Richard Scott, the Chris Mattich team bike, followed by on number 16 Roger Hayes, so he's been forward to 4th and gone back in the rain a little bit. Then Robert Holden, who's also fallen back a touch in the rain on 14. They're followed then by Rod Cox, who has faded also a bit in the rain on bike number 2, and then 10 Wayne Clark Dave Peterson, Yamaha 750. We're looking now at 3rd place Michael Dowson, looming on to 2nd position Rob Phillips. Suzuki and Yamaha just scorching underneath it. Michael Dowson, who really had a sensational year last year, but not such a good one this time. McGee riding the Michael Dowson bike, number 1 at the moment. Dowson to ride later. McGee was the man who won the RZ Yamaha series earlier this year, but due to an injury, a broken scaphoid bone in his wrist, couldn't go to Holland for the World Final. Ian Perrow did, and came second by just a whisker in a World Final that was dominated by Australia. It was a great effort. Malcolm Campbell coming forward a spot on Robbie Phillips, who either he or the bike, could it be a possibility that the more peaky powered Suzuki 750 is harder to ride in the rain than the Honda that just has power over quite a wide rev range?
Well, you beat me to it. Well, I was just about to say that the major difference between the two bikes is in the case of the Yamaha, which you saw just past Robbo there with no problem. He's got constant velocity carburetors, which gives you a very, very smooth delivery of power. And with the Suzuki, it's a very peaky bike, and it's very hard to get the carburation spot on right down the bottom. And I don't think riding in these conditions it'll be too good.
In fact, being overtaken by another Suzuki, number 49. That's John Richards, Max Robertson. They qualified 28th. Max Robertson's riding the bike at the moment.
I think you'll find that he's actually a lap down.
Yes, indeed. He hasn't overtaken him on position, but he's just travelled faster at that moment. Still a bit alarming when you're up the front of the field.
Oh, not too good at all.
Malcolm Campbell, whose Honda is like this position. Richard Scott on 5, and on 8, Rob Phillips. Behind him, Kevin McGee. Sorry. 32 Sandwich in there, but second Roger Hayes on 16. Straight bike in that group. Roger hasn't done a lot of racing this year. He ran at Surfers just a few weeks ago.
I believe, Will, this is, I think it's 12 6-hour race that Roger's contested in.
Indeed, he's done more 6 hours than anybody else. He's had a fine record in them as well.
He's probably had more controversy surrounding them each time. I see yesterday in the qualifying sessions there was a few protests lodged by Roger's team. Unfortunately, was upheld.
Yes, he just said that the number 1 rider had been called out to do the opening qualifying session, and that Neil Chivers was the number 1 rider for his team, but they set the number 2 rider out. And the official quickly said, well, they really are fairly free to choose what they like. So Roger Hayes now coming up, giving Rob Phillips a hard time. And in fact, on similar bikes, so we've got to say that either Phillips doesn't like the conditions or his particular Suzuki isn't very much at home, because there are other Suzukis that are adapting to it much better. I remember seeing Robbie Phillips wield an XS 1100 Yamaha around Sandown and do it very effectively some years ago, so one imagines if you could do that you could deal with something with more precise handling. As we look now at Kevin McGee.
We're taking it very, very easy through Pitcher Paved corner there. It's a very, very slippery and off-camber corner.
McGee's coming up to lap Russell Howard and Robert Doran. They're an interesting pair. They qualified quite well, 13th. Russell Howard riding the bike at the moment. Doran was the Rookie of the Year in the RZ Yamaha Masters Series. Went extremely well. And Russell Howard last year did a great job on the Yamaha 350. Riding his heart out all day.
There's Mal Campbell taking a bit of a sideways move. He's really pushing the big Honda around in conditions like this. There he goes. Excuse me.
And in a sense, that's a good one to do that, because it builds up your confidence, surely, that you've sort of caught it. I mean, it doesn't build up your confidence that it's slid, but at least you're finding out what the limits are, aren't you? And
yeah, you have a reference point to remember from now on. You'll know just how much and where you can put the power on.
Campbell in 3rd place, leading the race at the moment. Len Willing sharing the Kawasaki with Ian Perrow from Michael Dowson, who's second on the Yamaha FZ, the best place that it's been so far in the race. There's Campbell again having trouble powering out of a corner. That particularly slow one where the Honda has an enormous amount of power and the potential to spin wheels. Campbell is in third. Fourth place is Richard Scott riding bike number 5, so he's done best in the wet. Fifth place, Hayes on 16. Sixth place on number 8 is Rob Phillis, and 7th place at number 6, Neil Chivers. Then it's Robert Holden and Rod Cox on 14 and 2 respectively. Dowson in second place, Campbell chasing, 750 Yamaha, 20-odd kilos lighter than the big 1000cc Honda. The engine on the Honda, half the weight of the Yamaha, 102 kilos in the engine and clutch on the Honda, big V4. And coming up to Graham Morris, Brad Hayward. Graham Morris doing the opening stint on their Suzuki 750, number 15. Dowson through, Campbell caught, and will need to be careful as he comes onto Morris.
Now Campbell's really having to work to keep that bike up front there. Well, it's just sliding all over the place.
They come underneath. John Pace, Jeff Sale. You remember they got away last. And here they are, soldiering around. They qualified 7th. John Pace is riding the bike at the moment. He shared the bike that lost by 3 seconds last year. He was with Wayne Gardner, was beaten by Michael Dowson and Richard Scott. Round now through Castrol corner it is, onto the main straight, Dunlop straight. Campbell now says to the Honda, give me what you've got. If you won't behave yourself when I'm powering you out of corners, at least I can use everything down the straight. And now through that high-speed corner at the end of the straight, anything can get twitchy there. Oh, dear oh me. Len Willing tucked in there, 33 in behind him is Alan Cunningham. Very experienced off-road rider. As Willing goes through.
He's got the foot
Cunningham not riding it
style
at the moment. Sorry, Graham. Barry Thompson riding that bike, but Alan Cunningham was 4th in the Wind Safari in the bike section. We'll see him later on bike 33. So, Len Willing leading the pack. He's on 28 laps. He's on his 28th lap. He's done 27. He's been racing for 39 minutes and 15 seconds. And he will probably be due in at around the 1 hour 12 minute or soon after that mark to give him 4 pit stops. The hour and a half mark is the mark needed to be achieved for the bike hoping to do it in 3 stops. Very few can do it in 2.
This weather will playing havoc, I guess, with the team managers and trying to plan when they should bring their riders in. Obviously, because of the conditions, you'll be using a lot less fuel, and of course, all their race planning and strategy is really up the wall.
Yes, indeed. There's the gap you see to 2nd place and 3rd place. McGee and Campbell. Real up-and-comer, Kevin McGee, on bike number 1. Very likeable young man who raced an RD Yamaha, a production road-going 252 stroke. Has had a TZ to move him up in the grading. He's an A-grade rider. But really came under notice on Ducatis in a various European bike series, and really has gone on to great things since then, and this is a prime ride for him. He comes on to Barry Knight, Manuel Blanco on bike number 24. Qualified in 19th place, Barry Knight riding at the moment. Bike overtaken down the straight with somebody on each side, which is always a bit awe-inspiring if you're not expecting it. That was 45 that was so surrounded. Craig Morris, Ducati 750. So Dowson and McGee at least, and Campbell, you can see in very close company in second and third place.
Conditions are starting to dry out. Well, I guess when you're following these other riders around, you'll be looking for that dry line that's going to start to appear very shortly.
Yes, the rain stopped now, glistening in the offline sections of the track, but very much drier on the line. Look at this very close company between second and third place, still though being led by the Kawasaki of Len Willingen, with Malcolm Campbell as it dries out trying to have a crack at Kevin McGee. Let's go down to the pit where John Smales has got one of the riders who didn't manage to stay upright during the rain.
David Peterson, co-rider Wayne Clark, who came down. What happened, David?
Well, Wayne said that his visor had lifted up and he couldn't see where he was going in the condition, and going into the right-hander over there, he lost the front end. The bike went down the road and end over end, and I think that bike's passed on to greener pastures.
So you won't be having a ride today?
No, it doesn't look like it.
What a great shame. You will be back to the Swan Insurance Series later this year?
Yes, I'm bringing my Creepy Crawley Honda over. It's a 500cc Honda for the Swan. It's a bike I rode in the Grand Prix in Europe this year. I'm really looking forward to it.
Well, let's hope you get better weather then.
Yes, let's hope. Thanks very much.
Well, there's Kevin McGee. As you can see, he's pulled just a little bit of a gap and slotted bike 33. That's the Alan Cunningham Barry Thompson bike between him. Sorry, that's civil. Yes, it is 33. There is in fact two. Elastic sponsored bikes in the event. But Campbell just losing touch a little bit with Kevin McGee.
I was speaking to Dave Pedersen prior to the start, and he said that his tyres that he was running the Bridgestone were either dry ones or wet ones, and he didn't have the type of tyre that would work in conditions exactly what we're seeing now. That could have possibly been one of the reasons why he ended up on his ear, so to speak.
Yeah, it doesn't help if your tyres are not ideally suited to the conditions. As Michael Dowson flies past Rod Brown, Max Thompson, bike number 11, that's the Yamaha 752. Interesting to look at the bike breakup. The most popular models are the Suzuki and Yamaha 750s. There's 11 of each of those. Kevin McGee, you're pointing out, Graham?
Yeah, Kevin's obviously having trouble with his visor on the slower sections. He's having to actually lift it up to try and get some airflow in there to actually see. Now that is going to be a real problem, because in situations like that you lose your concentration, you use the wrong part of the track at the wrong time, and it becomes very, very disconcerting, and your lap times obviously suffer.
Well, McGee's struggling with that problem, but still in second place at the moment. As I said, 11 of those Yamaha 750s, 11 of the Suzuki 750s, 4 Honda 1000s, 4 Yamaha 350s in the race, 5 of the Suzuki two-stroke 500s. And what that means is that there's, in all, with 3 different model Yamahas, there's 16, 2 different model Suzukis, there's 16, there's 4 Kawasaki's, 4 Hondas, 1 Ducati, 2 Ducatis, sorry, it's Kajiva, which owns Ducati and a Ducati, giving us 42 bikes in all. So 5 different brands, 4 from Japan, 1 from Italy, and down in the pit area again, we've got another rider who came to grief talking with John Smales.
This is the view that Alan Delatour had through his safety helmet when his Yamaha went down the road. What happened, Alan?
Oh, well, the front end just washed out on me, and that was it. Just probably trying a little bit too hard in the rain.
Conditions really slippery for you?
Very greasy out there at the moment, yes.
Well, we saw Buster Saunders running as hard as his little legs would carry him up pit straight to try and retrieve the bike. Is it reclaimable?
Well, I think myself and Buster might be sitting out the rest of the 6 hour this year.
What a shame.
Len Willing here looking very good. His bike, and he obviously happy with the conditions, and has a quite handy lead now as he's coming around the complete lap 32, and his lead is about 5.66 seconds. 5.6 seconds. Len Willing, there you see the gap to Michael Dowse in second place. To where has Malcolm Campbell gone on bike number 9? Should have been in closer than that to Kevin McGee. McGee doing a great job for a less experienced rider in this very exalted company. Some of Australia's best riders surrounding him at the moment. As we look then at number 14, the Robert Holden bike, that's back in 8th place. But in fact, there's 3 of them quite close together. Robbie Phillips, 8, 14, and 6. 14 is Robert Holden, as I've said, and 6 is Neil Chivers, of course. So we've got 2 of the former race leaders in that group. 19 in there is John Goulet, Michael Cooper. Michael Cooper from Tasmania, Yamaha 750, that qualified 26. Phillips pulling away a little bit now from his found people evenly matched with him, but back there in 6th place. Phillips heading a group of 3, 7th and 8th too. See it's Robert Holden on 14, who's fairly close to him. And then Neil Chivers in there too, 6th. Number 3 there is John Pace Jet Sail bike that got away so badly. Seems to have been ailing since.